Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's virtual vigil against violence between Jews and Palestinians. My name is Ben Murane, and I'm the Executive Director of the New Israel Fund of Canada, one of the three organizers of this gathering. Alongside Canadian Friends of Peace Now and JSpaceCanada, our three organizations put this event together, and we're honored to be supported by our community partners too. That includes Ameinu Canada, Canadian Friends of Rabbis for Human Rights, Congregation Shir Libeynu, the Danforth Jewish Circle, Temple Kol Ami, Oraynu Congregation for Humanistic Judaism, and Temple Beth. Why are we holding this gathering today? We gather today in order to find comfort together, to be seen together, and also to encourage action together. Over the past 2 weeks, we've all watched as smaller incidences of violence and extremism between Jews and Palestinians cascaded into larger, widespread violence. We gather today because we believe, very simply, that it's possible to care about more than one thing at once. We can and do deplore terrorism and Hamas's bloody opportunism, and at the same time, deplore the settlement enterprise and Jewish extremism too. We don't submit to moral equivalence, but neither do we hide from inconvenient truths. And we speak against violence even if it is committed and fueled by our own side, and we feel saddened by death even if it's not our own side. And that's what the next hour is really about. It's not about our specific or precise analysis or where we lay blame or exactly how we got here. It's about that we have arrived at great sadness. Over the past 2 weeks, I think we've carried our sadness privately, and we felt uncertain about what to do and powerless that it would change anything so far away. We gather today because the closest antidote to the sadness that we have is each other. The remarkable outpouring of support for this event on short notice is testament to this, and there are nearly 300 people who've joined us right now. And in fact, we know tens of thousands of Canadian Jews feel this way. We aren't alone, you aren't alone. We're also holding this vigil because we want others to see how many of us there are. We want to proudly stand up and be seen by others in our community, by our friends and allies in other communities in Canada, and by our elected representatives. And we're delighted to have a number of them joining us right now. We're also holding this vigil because we truly believe that there are indeed meaningful ways that you can help us to make a difference here in Canada and over there in that place for both peoples that we care so much about. Now, the chat is active for you to participate, but there's not going to be a Q&A session. Please engage as respectfully as you would in a house of worship, and we won't hesitate to remove those who don't. So thank you again for joining us. We're really pleased to have so many of you, and really pleased to make this space for all of us. So let us begin with some solemn reflection. And to lead us in this, we welcome Rabbi Larry Englander. Rabbi Larry Englander is the founding rabbi and rabbi emeritus of Sella congregation in Mississauga. He's also an adjunct rabbi at Temple Sinai in Toronto. He's a teacher, an author, a leader with Arza Canada, with JSpaceCanada, and with the New Israel Fund, and he's a member of the Order of Canada. Larry, thank you for joining us today.
Shalom, salam, everyone. I'd like to read a poem by the late Israeli playwright and poet, Hanoch Levin. It was written for an earlier battle, but unfortunately it's still applicable today. The Hebrew title is Shachmat, which means chess. I'll read it in English, but I want you to know that the Hebrew word for pawn, the chess piece, is chayal, which is the same word that is used for soldier. Where did my child go, my little good child? Chayal shachor makeh chayal lavan. Black pawn captures a white pawn. My father won't return, never will he come. Chayal lavan makeh chayal shachor. White pawn captures a black pawn. Tears in all the rooms and silence in the gardens. The king is playing with the queen. My child will never rise, forever he will sleep. And black pawn captures white pawn. My father in the dark will never see light again. White pawn captures black pawn. Tears in all the rooms and silence in the gardens. The king is playing with the queen. The child that's in my lap, now he's on a cloud. Black pawn captures white pawn. My father's heart was warm. Now his heart is cold. White pawn captures black pawn. Tears in all the rooms and silence in the gardens. The king is playing with the queen. Where did my child go, my little good child? Black and white pawns are dead. My father won't return, never will he come. And there are no white and black pawns. Tears in all the rooms and silence in the gardens. On an empty board, only a king and queen stand. I'm now going to recite the Kaddish, the memorial prayer. And of course, it's not possible for us to list all the names for whom we are saying this today. But as this prayer is recited, each of us will choose for whom we say it. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv, v'imru amen. Yehe shmei Rabba nevarach le'alam ulalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudisha berichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, al kol b'nei Sarah, al kol b'nei Hagar, ve'al kol yoshvei Tevel. May the one who causes peace to reign in the high heavens also enable us on earth to establish peace among all Israel, all the children of Sarah, all the children of Hagar, and all dwellers on earth. And to this we say, Amen.
Rabbi Englander, thank you for those very inspirational words. Amen. My name is Gabriella Goliger. I'm the national chair of Canadian Friends of Peace Now. With us from Israel is Dana Mills of Peace Now. Dana joined Peace Now shortly after Yitzhak Rabin's murder and spent her high school years as a youth activist in the movement. She has a PhD in political theory from the University of Oxford and is the author of 3 books. Since March 2021, she has been Peace Now's Director of Development and External Relations. I don't think she has had a moment to draw breath since. Dana, Please tell us what it's been like for you and your Peace Now colleagues to be doing peace activism during these last 2 turbulent weeks.
Thank you so much, Gabriella, for this kind introduction. And I just want to say thank you so very much all for being with us, not only today, but this week. Thank you, all of you who have given time to strengthen the voice of peace and to strengthen the work for peace in a really, really volatile time. Truly, our international collaborations, international community, and our friends in Canada have sustained us in so many important ways. And from our hearts, now I'm talking on behalf of our entire team, we wanted to say thank you. It's been an incredibly tough time in many ways. Just very practically, as you probably know, we've all been in and out of shelters. One alarm caught us all in the office while working in Peace Now. The irony was not lost on any of us. And in terms of just advocacy and the messages we're trying to get across, it's been nonstop. And for us, it's a really, really crucial time to talk about peace, and not just, of course, we were hoping for a ceasefire, which we hope will start tomorrow, but we want to talk about peace and a political solution. There are no military solutions to political conflict. And throughout the entire time that Peace Now has been advocating, it is pushing towards political agreements and moving towards a substantial peace agreement, and not just these pauses in circles of violence. Personally, it's been incredibly hard for us. The grief is overwhelming. We feel incredibly affected. All of us know people on both sides of the border who are affected by this circle of violence. And I think there's something that's really strong when you live here and you see how strong the connections are when you hear about attacks in either side of the border, and you wonder if someone you care about and you love is affected. And we really, truly are bound with each other, and we have to find a way to live together, because these times really teach us that in the most dramatic way, I think.
Thank you, Dana. I have another question. What actions is Peace Now taking now to improve the situation, and what will you be doing in the coming days?
So Peace Now has been advocating in a number of parallel ways. We always choose different avenues to the same kind of advocacy that we do. First of all, you might have seen that one issue that has been in the headlines a lot is the dispute over the Sheikh Jarrah evictions that has reached international attention, such as really unprecedented in many ways. Peace Now has been advocating for the Palestinian residents of Sheikh Jarrah who are in danger of eviction for many, many years. And we have been protesting every Friday. We will be there tomorrow. We have been there for the past 11 years with the residents. And we have a large advocacy campaign that we are kind of mobilizing throughout that. At the same time, we are working in the courts with the residents. We are providing legal recourse and legal assistance to the residents of Sheikh Jarrah and of East Jerusalem more broadly. We are active in several other communities, such as Silwan, such as Beth and Hawa. So this is one thing that has been very focal to us and has been very deeply connected to the circle of violence, the upsurge around the Sheikh Jarrah evictions, disproportionate police violence, stun grenades thrown, including against our own activists who had witnessed and experienced that, had been one of the largest kind of pushes to escalation of this surge of violence. Generally, we have been working very closely with other organizations on the anti-war, pro-peace camp, just taking to the streets. Most days we go to protest in various places. As you probably know, another thing that has been bothering us and kind of deeply depressing us is the surge of violence in mixed cities. So there's been a lot of demonstrations about coexistence, about how do Jews and Palestinians live together, not just beyond the Green Line, but within Israel itself. And we've been there in protest and sort of working with our partners around that. So we are active in various ways. I do encourage you, I'll post afterwards our social media handles, do follow us, because we are doing a lot of public work around that. We're doing a lot of education, and just to give people facts. We know that it's really hard to sort of be bombarded by information. There's a lot of fake news going around. There's a lot of post-truth. We are really, really keen to just give the facts as we see them on the ground. We are there every day, every week, and we just want to be able to be your voice and to help you advocate and using the facts.
Thank you. Very briefly, Dana, can you tell us what your message is to diaspora Jews who might feel reluctant at this time or ambivalent about in any way seeming to criticize Israel in this turbulent moment?
First of all, I want to say that I understand the pull, and it's okay to feel contradictory feelings, and this is an incredibly tough time, and we ourselves are torn here. And I think our message is that you shouldn't choose to be pro-Israel or pro-Palestine, you should be pro-peace. You should advocate for coexistence. You should advocate for ways forward against injustice, against violation of human rights, for living together. And criticizing actions that are illegal, that are violent, that are damaging Israelis as well as Palestinians is something that is in the aid of the people of both Israel and Palestine. I've always believed that no one benefits from war, neither the oppressor nor the oppressed. We all lose in our humanity, we all lose in our ability to live complete lives and flourish. It's true that there is a disproportionate balance of power, and Israel is a state, and we are dealing with civilian population and a terrorist organization. But there are a lot of people who are very deeply affected, who are running to shelters in the south every single day, every single hour. We all live a very precarious existence, and we all lose in our ability to just live in peace. So please continue to advocate for peace and for justice, and by that you will help everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, sorry about that. Thank you so much. That really was so beautiful. And I am very excited to introduce right now Michal Sella. Michal is the executive director of Givat Haviva, a wonderful Hashomer Chatzair education center. Most of the Canadian participants will likely be very familiar with their Heart to Heart program, which happens at Kam Shonria right here in Canada. It's one of the most inspiring programs that I'm familiar with. Michal is an expert in Israeli politics, to say the least. She has extensive experience working with governmental bodies, both in Israel and abroad, working as the director of the Center for Policy Change of Shatil, which is the executive arm of the New Israel Fund. She's also a parliamentary advisor at the Knesset. She's been a journalist, co-editor at Channel 2, a founding team member of The Whistle, which is an Israeli fact-finding NGO, and a pedagogical coordinator at the Hashomer Chatzair youth movement. Michal, we are so glad to have you here from Tel Aviv during what is, I know, a very difficult time. And I'd like to ask you a few questions about that, because you are someone who has done so much work with Givat Haviva, building Arab-Jewish relations for a shared society. And I'm very curious to hear what these past 2 weeks have been like for you, as a human being who has done that work. What have you been feeling personally as this violence between Jews and Palestinians has gone on?
So first of all, hi everyone, and thank you for having me. The weird thing is that exactly 2 weeks ago, I was at an iftar dinner for Ramadan in one of the European embassies here in Tel Aviv, and they sat me down with the political team, and they asked for political analysis. So I told them that I don't think there's a chance for a coalition without Bibi, or like the anti-Bibi coalition, but if it's going to look like they have a chance, I think we're going to experience like a huge wave of violence here. And I thought about like maybe an operation in Gaza. I thought about a little bit of violence within our cities, but I never expected what is going going on right now. So I think that at the beginning in Givat Haviva, and I think in all of the Shir Society organizations, we were a bit in shock. We couldn't really understand what is going on and what are we supposed to do here. We were very sad. We felt like, well, sad is not the word. We were heartbroken. We felt like we have no control over the situation. And you know, for my team, some of them people who've been working for like 20 years in this field, educating youth and creating different educational programs for Jews and Arabs or Jews and Palestinians here in Israel. It's just, it was overwhelming. And it took us like 48 hours to actually start to understand what can be our role and what we should do.
I think when you talk about heartbreak, I can so sympathize with what you are saying and the shock, the magnitude of it all. And when you talk about the lead up to that, just in terms of the political situation, it is really quite something. So, all right, that's how we got here. That's how you've been feeling. But what about right now, as you see it? What is the situation right now in terms of, you know, what's not in the headlines that we need to know?
So from my perspective, I think there are 2 points. One is the fact that all of this is pretty much orchestrated from the top. And I think that's also part of what Jews and Arabs in Israel should understand. We are all part of this political game where our leaders are just using us. And usually we say it as like a, you know, like a broad thing to say about politics and society, but here it's like, it's very, very unusual to see something like that in such an obvious way, right? So I can't imagine a normal democratic country or state where a mini civil war can start in its streets and the prime minister would just won't say anything. Like for almost 24 hours, he didn't say anything. And when he wanted to say something or when he had to say something, he said something really mellow and nothing about the fact that we should all calm down and we should all think of what we're doing and we're all part of the same country and we're all citizens of the same states, etc., etc. So in that sense, I think the media is talking a little bit about it. Maybe you can read something about it in Haaretz, but it's not something that is just out there. And I think it's really, really important to remember that. It's part of a very personal political game. And that's what's so horrible about it, because now we will be the one that would have to, like, you know, think of a way to heal these horrible wounds we didn't know we had until 2 weeks ago. So we knew all of our problems. We knew there is no equality here. We knew the Israel democracy is a very unstable democracy, a deteriorating democracy, but we didn't know we were supposed to be afraid of our neighbors. We didn't know Israeli citizens, Jews and Arabs, Jews and Palestinians are supposed to be scared to go to the hospital because maybe, I don't know, other citizens will just stop their car and ask them if they're Jews or Arabs and then hit them or attack them. So it's something we didn't know existed here. And it's important to know that it's coming from the top. So that's the first point. And the second point, that's like very much our perspective in Givat Haviva. But 2 days ago, we had our annual report of the, how do you say it in English? I think it's like the state viewer, maybe, Mevaker HaMedina. It's a very important report. And what it says in like a very long chapter is that the government and the Ministry of Education actually didn't do anything to promote shared society education. The budgets that we have are just unprecedentedly low. It's about 2 million shekels that are invested in shared society education in Israel. It's nothing. But what we can see is a lot of investment of the right in taking out materials about democracy and equality from the curriculum in Israel. And I think that we can see the fruits of this policy right now in the streets, where mostly young people aged like 16 to 18 are rioting in the streets, Jews and Arabs.
So many people watching throughout the world, they'll say, Israel is at war, but then they don't think about all these political dynamics you're talking about that preceded it and indeed underlie everything that's going on. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, that is the stuff that really, helps you understand. And thank you so much for giving us that insight. The only thing I will say is caretaker prime minister, would be the English term, since he doesn't have a mandate right now. But looking ahead, what are you and others doing over the next week to make a difference? And how can we here in Canada help you?
So we're doing a few things in Givat Haviva and also in this field in Israel. There are also other organizations. So Givat Haviva is mainly an educational center. So we're working with all types of groups, from like business people to council members, regional council members and mayors, and all the way through kids in junior high and in high school, and their teacher and their principals. And we're trying to take all these groups we're working with usually and just bring them together, try to talk about the things, trying to maybe to have a big event in Givat Haviva that is planned to be in about 2 weeks, and just try to take this community of people who are usually talking to each other and meeting each other, and try to at least make them keep doing that, because there's a real crisis even within the community of people who believes in shared society. And the other thing that we're doing is creating a digital campaign in order to get to the other parts of the population that are not around Givat Haviva. Givat Haviva geographically is in Wadi Ara. It's a very mixed area in Israel with many Arab villages and cities and Jewish kibbutzim and moshavim. So we're working in this field, but also we're trying to get to the rest of Israel. And we're working with other organizations to create an educational event in Rabin Square in Tel Aviv. And I hope it will take place in about 2 or 3 weeks, just to bring together youth and teachers and educators to talk about the ways we can actually bring shared society values into society now that we know that it's so crucial for us.
Well, Michal, toda rabba. I mean, thank you, first of all, for the amazing work that you are doing. The work that you've talked about, it's so important. And thank you for sharing with us how you're feeling in this really difficult time, and for all the insight you've given us into the issues. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
I think that we've been given a lot to think about from Michal, and this would be a really good moment to bring in Lenka Lichtenberg, who is a musician, a composer, a producer. She's released 7 of her own albums, in addition to countless collaborations, and she's actually the winner of both the Canadian Folk Music and International Independent Music Awards. Lenka, thank you so much for being with us, and to take it away, to give us a bit of space to reflect on what we've just heard.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It really is very, very special and meaningful for me to be here, part of this incredible and warm community. I think it's just so crucial, as has been said today, and I'm sure will again that we don't feel alone, those of us who share these sentiments, that we feel that we have each other, and there is definitely strength in numbers, and there are many of us in number. So it's so special to meet here together. I am also very happy that I have the opportunity to share something that I do, which is music. I have two songs for you, and I hope that it will mean something to you. Music means a lot of different things to lots of different people. It can be entertainment or uplifting, but it can also serve as a very special connection device. It's basically a bridge to the other, the other that sometimes we may not see or touch upon, but music can do that. And so the first song I will share with you is in fact one from a project that I have called Bridges, which was created to do just that, to create a space for two cultures and two peoples. The words have been created by Yair Dalal and my friend also Rula Said, and it is called Peace is the Only Way. Peace is the only way. The only way is peace. Hashalom leman ha'amin, ha'amin leman hashalom. Peace is the only way. The only way is peace. This next song for you is one called Lo Yisa Goy. לא יסגו אל גוי חרב, לא ילמדו עוד מלחמה. לא יסגו אל גוי חרב, לא ילמדו עוד מלחמה. לא יסגו אל גוי חרב, לא ילמדו עוד מלחמה. לא יסגו אל גוי חרב, לא ילמדו עוד מלחמה. לא יסגו אל גוי חרב, לא ילמדו עוד מלחמה. I have to thank you now for allowing me to participate in this very, very special event. It really is just incredibly meaningful. And also, I have to personally thank the organizers, if possible, for putting this together. It's so much work, and it's been done so fast and so efficiently and so beautifully with so many people involved. It really is mind-blowing how you managed to pull that off. So that's just a personal note of thanks and admiration to all the organizers, and thank you so much. So now that you have been able to, we have been able to reflect a little bit through music and words on the situation, and lots of thoughts come to mind. So I think it's important now we talk about what to do with these sentiments and what practically can be done.
Thank you, Lenka. Thank you so much for your music. Hello, everyone, again. I'm Ben Murane, the Executive Director of the New Israel Fund of Canada. Now that we've reflected, now that we've heard from some people on the ground doing what they can, very bravely to make a difference, very bravely caring about more than one thing at once. What can you do? What can we do together? The answer is that there's so much that we can do, and there's so much that there can be done, and there's so much that must be done. So briefly, each of the three main organizing partners are just going to give you something that we think, something that we're doing, something that we think that is really important for you to take part in, just as a starting point. And then after that, we'll have actually a bit of a special guest, and then we'll conclude and close. So just to get us started, on behalf of the New Israel Fund of Canada, this is what we ask of you. The New Israel Fund of Canada, in case you're not familiar, protects and advances democracy and equality in Israel. And we do it by supporting projects on the ground in Israel that fight for social and economic justice and religious freedom, civil and human rights, shared society and anti-racism, Palestinian citizens' equality, and we fight for democracy itself. When you listened just minutes ago to Michal Sella and her work at Givat Haviva, I hope you saw just one example of resilience and bravery of Israeli society. As disturbing as it may have been for us all to watch vigilante violence within Israel proper, at the same time, there are Jewish citizens and Palestinian citizens for whom the outbreak of violence has been an equally powerful call to action. For every action, there is a reaction, and as Jewish extremism raises its head again and again, each time there is also a pushback, a realization that if something is not done from within Israeli society, that it will tear itself apart. There is a growing movement in Israel that knows that the answer to Jewish and Palestinian extremism and violence is Jewish and Palestinian partnership, including within government. As Lenka's saying, those images that you saw were from the past week. What is happening right now is a groundswell moment of pushback. Here are just a few examples. Days ago, 27 demonstrations of Jews and Palestinians against violence sprung up on roadsides and in town squares across the country. Those images you saw were just some of them. In the north, Palestinian and ultra-Orthodox Jewish first responders are seeking to organize mixed ambulance crews. In Jerusalem, interfaith parades distributed flowers in the Muslim quarter of the old city after the racism displayed there previously. In Tel Aviv and Yafo, delegations of Jews and Arabs have been visiting victims of mob violence by visiting the hospital beds of those victims to say, those people who hurt you do not represent us. And then there's legal petitions being filed to ban the most virulent hate groups and to ensure police accountability, and the list goes on and on and on. Doing these things on a regular day in Israel is already hard to do. But to do it as rockets are falling on both sides of the border is even more amazing. I believe, that Israeli civil society has within it what is necessary to fix what has been broken. But they don't have to do it alone. It's a question, can they do it alone? And that kind of social change takes resources. It takes money, it takes time, it takes talent. And that's the New Israel Fund of Canada's mission. The New Israel Fund in Israel on the ground has launched a $1 million shekel fund in order to fuel the groups and initiatives that will ease tensions immediately. And over the next year, begin picking up the pieces of this mess. So my request for you is very simple. Please, yes, do take action here in Canada. And also, please consider making a difference on the ground to the Israelis of all backgrounds who are building shared society by making a gift to the New Israel Fund of Canada's campaign for shared society. And now, Gabriella.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much for your words. And I'll build on them. I'm Gabriella Goliger again, Canadian Friends of Peace Now. And yes, what can we do here in Canada at this time? I think the first thing is we must not despair and turn away. We must draw inspiration from the people in Israel and beyond who refuse to give up on peace. Another thought, become as informed as possible and draw on multiple sources, question the propaganda, and be careful what you share on social media. If you can, reach out person to someone beyond your own camp. If you have contacts among Palestinians, Arabs, and Muslims, this is the time to send a message of caring. It's also important to reach out to other Jews who may not think as you do. Acknowledge your differences, but acknowledge too their distress and understand where they are coming from and why. Now, among those who refuse to give up on peace, for me, the outstanding example is Peace Now in Israel. Peace Now has been in the lead of the peace camp for decades. It promotes the two-state solution and works against settlement expansion. It does so for the sake of Israel's security and democracy. Peace Now says loud and clear, you cannot ignore Palestinian rights and needs forever. This nightmare we are witnessing now is what such neglect leads to. As Dana told us, Peace Now is front and center in the struggle to prevent the evictions of Palestinian residents of Sheikh Jarrah. This issue was a key flashpoint that set off the current explosion of violence. The very day that everything fell to pieces, Peace Now was in the Knesset raising the concern about Sheikh Jarrah. Peace Now works for change through outreach to young people, to politicians, to the media, and others. They expose what's happening with settlements through their Settlement Watch program. And we, Canadian Friends of Peace Now, we fund some of their educational programs. Here in Canada, we also do a wide range of activities to promote the two-state solution. For example, we've been running a series of informative webinars with top-class speakers. And we need your help to continue this important work and to continue supporting Peace Now in Israel. So please consider making a tax-deductible gift. Just go to our website and click on the donate button. We also welcome your volunteer help, and we'd love to hear your suggestions and ideas. So please join our email list. I'd love to hear from you, and thank you so much for being here.
Gam ze ya'avor. This too shall pass. As a board member of JSpaceCanada, I am here to pray with you for an end to this military campaign. However, I am also here to remind you that when this round of fighting ends, the violence, the suffering will continue. Chaverim, friends, I know many of you are angry, and I know many of you are heartbroken. We need to hold on to these feelings. When the news cycle invariably changes, we at JSpace are here to ensure that our community does not forget Jerusalem. We cannot forget the occupation, the blockade, the evictions, the racism. This is not the Israel that we were promised by our teachers when we were young. And in moments like this, that Israel seems very far away. However, it is possible. And I know that because I know you. I know the good work that so many of you are doing to make peace a reality. And it is our work at JSpace to raise your voices within our community. Now, this work is hard, and it is made all the harder by the kind of hatred on display around the world in recent days. So much explicit anti-Semitism. And what I find even harder are the well-intentioned folks who just do not grasp our collective memory. Nonetheless, we must persist on our part. JSpace will continue to combat hatred and ignorance. And what we ask of you, do not let the detractors stop you and stop us from the future that we want. A future without running to bomb shelters. A future where these kind of vigils are no longer needed. So I ask of you, let this be a moment for change. Take what you are feeling and write it down and hold on to it. Speak to your friends and family about what is going on. Write a letter or an email to your member of parliament. And if you need the words to get started, feel free to share the JSpaceCanada statement. We at JSpace are renewed in our determination to raise the progressive Jewish voice here in Canada. Please consider joining our mailing list. Check us out on social media. Visit jspacecanada.ca, and if you can, make a donation. Make a tax-deductible donation so that we can engage government and build community, especially amongst our younger generation. And if you need any assistance or want to get more involved, I would personally be happy to have a conversation with you. We can build a Canadian Jewish community that loves Israel and is opposed to the occupation. we can do it, and it will make a difference. And
Thanks, Michael. Thanks so much. There were 3 calls to action from each of our organizations. They're just a starting place. They're just some ideas. There's been some wonderful ones in the chat, but we agree altogether that we must channel our frustrations and our feelings into productive action. Before we take perhaps one little action together on this call, I'd like to introduce a special guest. I'd like to introduce Mohammed Hashim, who's the director of the Canadian Race Relations Foundation and a friend and ally of many of us here. Mohammed, thank you for joining us on short notice. Thanks for dropping in and offering a few words. We're really honored to have you.
Well, thank you for having me. I didn't prepare any notes before coming here. I just kind of wanted to be here in solidarity because I know there's a lot of people who are in a lot of pain right now. For me, you know, I've had a lot of difficult conversations. This is the most progressive Jewish conversation I've been in the last 2 weeks. All my friends, other than Bernie Farber, are from the Orthodox or the modern Orthodox community. So the conversations I'm having there are far more different than I'm having over here. But it's heartening to be in this space. You know, as I said, it's an incredibly painful moment for a lot of people. I think 227 Gazans have been killed, out of which 102 are children. You know, the Quran says, whoever kills an innocent, it is like killing the entire of humanity. And it's really hard to see all the violence that is happening there. 10 Israelis have also been killed. But it's a difficult moment within the Canadian Muslim community for a number of reasons. One is because nobody wants to see violence anymore. Nobody wants to see the oppression of Palestinians anymore. Nobody wants to see the occupation continue. No one wants to see the blockade continue in Gaza. And yet we feel helpless to be able to do anything. And here we are every 4 or 5 years, mourning and sadness again and again and again. And I'm tired of it. I'm honestly tired of it. I don't want to see this anymore. I have friends, you know, I was speaking to a friend of mine named Yossi Klein Halevi. He's a journalist in Jerusalem. And I told him I was disappointed with him when he wrote an op-ed in the Globe because he minimized the pain of Palestinians. He made it look like it's just about 6 families in Sheikh Jarrah, and that the pain of the occupation and that the pain and dehumanization of Palestinians meant so little. And I think that the world is now coming to understand what that feels like, because people are speaking up about it and they're not afraid to do so. I think that's a good thing. I'm also really worried about what happens here in Canada. I think there's many Muslims and Jews who are friends, but there's always the elephant in the room about how do we talk about Israel-Palestine? How do we have a real conversation where people can be honest and hold their truths and still remain friends? And it's a difficult conversation to have. And I honestly don't know how we're going to get there. But I think that if there's any place in this world where that conversation needs to happen, it's here in Canada. Because if it can't happen here, where can it happen? How can we model a new relationship between Muslims and Jews and Palestinians and Arabs and Israelis And how do we be a light into the nations here as a community, as an ummah, as Canadians? I don't want to go on too long because I'm just in a very sad moment, but I'll just ask you to join me in prayer for all those who have died. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawm ad-Din. Iyyak na'budu wa iyyak nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Amen. Thank you for having me.
Amen. Thank you for sharing your pain with us, and thank you for being here to listen to our pain too. Let's do one last thing together. If I can call back Michal to lead us in perhaps a final action and a little bit of closing. Thanks again, Michal, and thanks, Mohammed, for joining us.
Well, I just want to take the opportunity to also thank Karen Mock, who is the president of JSpaceCanada. She was not able to give some closing remarks because of some audio issues with her computer. But rest assured, she has been working very hard these past days. I believe that her days somehow have 28 hours in them, from what I understand of all the work that she has been doing, to raise the Jewish voice, progressive Jewish voice in these past days. And in fact, I'm only here today because of how she has championed reaching out across generational lines. And I know that Karen wanted to really encourage us all to listen to each other, to reach out to those with whom we might disagree, to share articles, but to read them before we post them or to share them, and to really think about what it means to have nuance and as we move forward. And when I reflect on this past hour and the way that we have had the chance to come together and share the sadness that we are all carrying, the chance to pray, the chance to reflect through music on our shared humanity, and as was said by our Israeli partners, and how we have to move forward from this sadness and find a way to live together, and to change the political realities, to build a shared society. And we can do it because, as Ben said, the antidote to all this sadness and heartbreak is each other. So with that said, it would really be great to take a screenshot of us all here together so we can show the vast numbers of people who feel the same way as us how we have come together. So we can share it with our Israeli partners, our elected representatives here in Canada, as well as on social media. And of course, I really want to invite anybody who would prefer to turn off your camera or to change your name to please do so. So with that, I'm gonna let folks do that, and then Hannah will be able to take the screenshot for us. So Hannah, were you able to take the screenshot? Can I get a confirmation on that?
We're good.
We're good. Oh, excellent, excellent. Well, I also want to thank Hannah because she has been an absolute gem. So much work coordinating and producing this gathering. Thank you so much for making it a possibility. And thank you as well to Ben and Gabriella for your clarion calls to action, for reminding us to support the heroes doing work on the ground in Israel and Palestine, and for reminding us that we must do our part to stand up for human rights. Thank you to all our community partners, Ameinu Canada, Canadian Friends of Rabbis for Human Rights, Congregation Shir Libeynu, Danforth Jewish Circle, Kolami, Oraynu Congregation for Humanistic Judaism, Temple Beth Ora. We know that there were others who would have liked to have signed on, but time was short and boards couldn't meet. We hope our lists will grow through future events. Please contact us anytime. Happy to add you. This time of gathering is not what's in the headlines, but it is real. And we need to be as hopeful about moments like this coming together as we are sad about the moments that tear us apart. Together we will make a difference. Ma'a salama, lehitraot.